Hello, welcome to the World May 30, 2025 episode number 197 of the Low Code Campfire. Today is an Open Lines Friday. We'll talk about what you want to talk about. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plantin'. This is an event that we do every Friday, 10 a.m. Central Time. It's an opportunity to get together between Plantin' and the community and to show what you're working on, to get some hints and tips if you're struggling, and show off some techniques if you've got them. So this is an all skill levels welcome meeting, whether you're a beginner or an expert or somewhere between. This is a great place to hang out and spend an hour and get smarter and help your fellow low coders. We record all of these and put them on YouTube. You can get to those at youtube.com/plantinap. Our episodes of the Low Code Cafe, our longer training format videos are also there as well. We'll run this agenda where we go around the campfire. We'll say hello, then go around the campfire. Anything that got submitted in advance or was first call. We'll talk about the things that got contributed to our community campfire website, look at what's been posted on the community, and generally talk about what you want to talk about. But I do encourage you, engage with us, jump in, show and tell, use the chat window, whatever you like. You can submit questions and topics in advance. You can either do that by submitting to the QR codes, using that QR code to get to a form submission, or you can just send an email directly to us at support@plantinap.com. Hello, group. Small group today so far.
Good morning.
Did anybody come with a first call? Something that's new and some area that we can help you out, or you can tell us what we're doing wrong, or what would you like to talk about?
I haven't caught up since last week. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I brought several things to talk about, so there's no problem if there is none. So consider that an open invitation. I'm going to dive into some other things. So just a reminder where we are. We have version 1.26 out, and version 1.27 is available as a release candidate, number one. We are just about to publish release candidate number two. We hope for that to happen next week. But we're trying to get Plantin' and the new version in a good shape. We did a lot of work with licensing, and licensing impacts you, so we want to make sure that we get that right. So that's why it's taken a long time to get a release out to you. Depending on the time frame, I might talk a little bit about licensing today because I think there's some interesting things to get to. And actually, that was the first thing on my list to talk about. So here's the last chance before I dive into something that I want to talk about.
I'm curious too.
Right, here we go. Um, I have an incognito session going on that has my Plantin' subscription. This is for my make-believe company. And the only thing that I have in here is a professional developer license. So this is one of the new changes that we've made to licensing. The old method of licensing was to say you license Plantin', you can have any number of developers, you can have any number of users. It's just Plantin', and there was a couple of different levels. Mostly the Harvest plan, which is the most traditional for websites. The Enterprise plan having more fuller features that would be required for a larger organization. So that was the old model. In the new model, and we went to a newer model to try to lower the entry point to get into Plantin'. And so you can have a starter plan, which is as low as, I believe it's $70 a month, and which is significantly less than the Harvest or Enterprise plans. But we also introduced the professional developer or the seats concept. So the idea is that you can, um, let's focus on professional developer. If you sign up for a professional developer license, among other things, this gives you the right to create any number of development environments that you want. And so that's the feature that I was going to demonstrate today. What does that look like? Um, so I have, when you have a professional developer, when you um, license one of those and we add it to your subscriptions, it has options like seats. And so this was a two-seat license that is in this account, and you can assign the seats to your developers. And so, in my case, I can sign up to two developers, and so two different people can be working on uh, one app or multiple apps at the same time. Um, Up to two people. So that's the seat concept. And so let's see how this plays out. I have an empty, no. I have a DNN website that is not empty. I've installed Plankton app on it. So that's kind of our starting spot. When you install Plankton app, what that looks like is you've you've installed the app builder product, created a configuration page, and added the um, let's see, added the app builder module to this page. When you go to the page, you get into a registration and you get into it automatically creates and downloads and installs all the other components that come with Plankton app, our forms and listings and tabs and many things. But the app builder is the lead off module. Okay, so I have a system that has this installed on it, and I'm just going to the home page. Now, I have no menu here because this is a page builder page, and page builder uses our menu product, which isn't licensed, so we have no license. If this was Exilion page, for example, it would have a menu. Anyway, I feel like I'm not getting to the point. Let's get to the point. If we browse to the configuration page, so we're going to go and view that. This is an unlicensed version of Plankton app. So it's pretty much a fresh copy than the experience that you're going to have. When you activate, it's activating against whatever console.plantonapp.com account that you have. So I'm logged into my console account as this Dale user. And so this is that's the context of activation, whatever the console account. If you're not logged into a console account, it's going to ask you to do so. Anyway, so we activate and we get some options. Because I'm a professional developer, I have this option dev UAT environment. Actually, everyone will see it, but it's only available to people who have the professional developer license in their account. So this is open to me to choose. If you had bought a license of any other type, you can just say activate production. You'll see all the licenses listed. So for example, if I hit activate production, I don't have any, and so there isn't anything for me to activate. I can activate a trial if I want, purchase a new one. Anyway, what I want to focus on is my professional developer feature. So I wanted to create a development or a user acceptance testing environment. It's a non-production environment. Because this is the first one, it's asking me some questions automatically. What's an app name? And here's our definition of what an app name is. Um, and so I'm going to call this my CRM. Doesn't matter. But we do have a choice. There's three different plans that you can choose from: a starter, a harvest, enterprise. So harvest and enterprise correspond to the ones I was talking about a minute ago. Let's try starter plan so we can see what this looks like. So I've chosen a starter plan, and then it wants to know an environment name. So we're beginning to introduce this concept of you have one application that you might have two or three or more environments of. So you might do your have a development environment that you do all your development, and then you have a UAT environment where you copy your development into the UAT and then give it to your users to do their user acceptance testing. And all these are non-production environments. And then finally, when you've got your development done and you're happy, get a plant and app license and create a production environment. And yes, UAT, user acceptance testing. Staging, some people call it, just different, and you could have different environments. But the most basic one, you're going to have a development environment. So I'm creating an app called My CRM, and it's going to be, I'm going to have a development environment. And we just hit activate. So this is a non-production environment. Um, by definition, when you start up anything other than a production one, it's non-production, and it's intended for you to be able to do all the development that you want to do, get your product ready. It's not crippled in any way. But it does have one annoying feature that is somebody browsing to the website would see a message that says this is a non-production environment, and the idea is it's not intended for you to release it to users and actually use it. That would be crossing the line into needing to have a developer license, a runtime license, a full license. So as a starter plan now, and I think we've showed this off before a little bit, but I'll just point it out. We have access to things like creating users and pages and files. But that you see this green icon, it means that it's an upgrade to use it. So, for example, the starter plan doesn't include the ability to define roles where you can fine-grain access to entities. But you can create entities, you can create forms and listings and put them on tabs and lots of great features. Um, Interestingly, version control is not locked off. So I don't really know. That's something that I'm going to make a note about, that version control is an enterprise level feature, and I don't know why that's not blocked off. But our search product is blocked off. The ability to create automation jobs or APIs. It's just a subset of Plant and App. Um, In the in the general settings, there is some other choices that you have here. I'll just explain a few of them real quickly. The refresh button forces your license to get refreshed immediately. So what this would be the kind of thing if you made a change to your subscription and got licensed more features, the refresh would go grab the license right away. And so if we've updated your license, we'll tell you, hey, use the refresh to get the newest version of the license. And then so for example, if we enabled the feature for SQL Console, which is we can follow the link. It'll tell us what the feature name and all the um, it's called our standard data integration feature. So if we turned on standard data integration, you could refresh your license, and then this upgrade arrow would go away. The manage button takes you to your same console account so that you can see your subscriptions. And as we can see, we have this starter plan that is a non-production runtime for My CRM. That's the application that we chose. And yeah, so it automatically creates a non-production subscription for you to use. And then finally, there's this reactivate. Anytime you click activate or reactivate, you get to this activation dialog, and if you proceed, it's going to let you you could activate an environment, for example, for production, or and here's a shortcoming, another note that I need to investigate. There's another feature that should be happening that lets you change from the starter plan to the enterprise plan to the harvest plan. Just as a developer, you can try to use the lowest cost one that meets your needs, or go full-fledged to enterprise. So I see a question: are the upgrade required to run or develop a feature? As a developer, I can build a workflow for a client on a startup. Can I build a workflow for a client on a starter plan? So, Jim, the idea there is that if you're on the starter plan, oops, let's see if I get all the way out here. It looks like I have to reactivate. Okay, so we're still activated in the starter plan. I didn't make any changes that time. So workflows is a feature that's not available on the starter plan, so you can't develop anything. On the other hand, as a professional developer, you can um, uh, you can activate an environment that is on a higher plan, like Harvest or Enterprise, and then develop workflow. Absolutely. When a you when you try to use that for your users, if they're running the starter plan, the workflow, basically, if you as a developer are developing under starter plan and it's not accessible to you, it's not going to be accessible to them without an upgrade. So you should develop in best case would be you should develop in the at the plan level that you expect to sell to your client. So if you think they're going to be going under the starter plan, you should develop under the starter plan. Then you're going to have the features that they're going to have. If you have to, if that's not enough, you can open up additional features, but they'll have to open up and license those additional features as well. Hopefully does that answer your question? Hopefully that helps. Um, so um, from a license feature standpoint, when we do this activation, this should have given us the ability to upgrade and flip to a different plan. So I want to demonstrate that we could go from starter to harvest, for example. Um, since it's not doing that, I'm going to force it. So we'll activate a new environment. I'm going to pick a new application and call it my CRM2 and get a new subscription. This is going to allow me to pick, for example, Harvest and activate. So there's still, you end up with an extra subscription in your account this way, which subscription, non-production subscriptions don't cost you anything if you're a professional developer. But notice now that I've activated under the Harvest runtime, all of these um, upgraded icons have gone away. All right. Somebody have questions? Patrick, you certainly don't understand anything of what I just discussed. Just play. So does it make sense why you might use something like this? I almost got you to talk, Patrick.
Yeah, I was having trouble finding my unmute button, but it it definitely is familiar.
Mm. Yes. Um, okay. So hopefully, as if it makes sense to you as to be able to use if you license for a professional developer, you can develop to your heart's content and work on projects for your clients, for clients that whether you're developing a product that you want to sell or developing a product for a client, a specific project that you'll be able to develop it and just use your professional developer license. When it's all done and the client's ready to use it, that's the point at which they need to license. They would get a harvest runtime license, and then that would give them the ability to run the work that you've created for them. They would not have it kind of sets us the stage for you as their developer to be the one that makes any modifications to that setup as well. It doesn't prevent them, but if they don't have a professional developer license, they may be limited to some of the abilities to change it. There's more. We're trying to split this into who's developing and who's running the application. Anyway. Yeah, happy to answer any other questions about that, and we'll be talking more about it. But I wanted you to and actually, I want let's experience some of the things that can happen. So I'm gonna. This was all in an incognito window, so I'm gonna close that and open a new incognito window just to kind of go to it. So this is the part that I was mentioning earlier. Anybody browsing to the site, if you were to browse to the site, you would get this welcome screen anytime you're working on a non-production environment. And it's as simple as clicking continue and you're off and running, able to work on the site again. But you'll see that message once a day. It's just, uh, again, intended to remind you that this is not for production use. And then the other one that you'll see that is not this is something that I'm sorry, this is another one that you'll see that's not to be concerned about, but to know and to expect it when you're on when you're working on a professional developer license. Um, if your license hasn't been associated um, with that website, you'll get this experience where you're going to see this oops screen and where you're going to have to reactivate. So this is part of what we're working on right now. Trying to, I mentioned we're trying to get release candidate 2 out the door. This really shouldn't have been an oops, but rather just a simple um, should have brought you to an activation screen, and I'll show you what that looks like. But I'm going to continue. It's making me log in again. And it shouldn't have made me log in again. That's where. But you go to configuration. This is what you'll see. If you don't, if you currently don't have your developer seat set on the site, you'll just see this activation dialog. It's as simple as saying activate, and we need our console login. You would log into your account, and I'm going to log into an account I can get to easily here. And you'll see your professional developer license and you'll click activate. And once you do that, now you're activated and ready to go. Our this is kind of a change in expectation in the past with the license. We were kind of a once activated, forever running scenario, and you never encountered any kind of restrictions. And with the professional developer seat, you're going to, from time to time, encounter that dialogue. There's nothing wrong. It's just you've got to click activate and log into console to be able to do that. So, but we have some things to smooth out there a little bit, and so just we'll see a more final version when it'll be a little bit more polished than what I just demonstrated, but concepts are still the same. One, you have a developer seat and you can use it on any one system at a time. All right. If no other questions on that, I have lots of other things to talk about, but we've had joiners since I asked. Anybody else have a first call thing that you want to talk about other than my topics? Okay, Jim had a question there. Configuration will not be available to a plain user. The answer is no. They'll have to have a seat, although we have there's actually going to be the let's see if I can demonstrate this rather than and try and get it right rather than just making stuff up. I'm going to do that same exercise again, come in incognito. It's going to run me through this is a development environment, and I'm going to log in. Go to configuration. Yeah, we have my annoying this error that we need to fix. So a plain user. Let me start at the end. There's in addition to the professional developer license, there's also going to be a community developer license, and the community developer license will give them some limited activities within that. And so let's see if I can activate a community license. That client will definitely get a community license. So here we go again. And see if hopefully there'll be a community one sitting in. Yeah, we have a community developer. So a community developer currently is a free plan versus and would not have the ability. For example, I was showing you that you can create as many development environments you want as a professional developer. Community developers don't have that option. It just works with their runtime. So if we activate under a community developer, we get similar features. I see that version control, for example, is locked out. So they would be able to work on their system and do many of the same development tasks as a plain user. So yeah, they're not locked out. They can create users and pages and look at their files, things like that. All right. Moving on. I have done a couple of documentation updates, and I thought I would just point them out. I've been working in this getting started area of Plantin-App, and the documentation is available at learn.plantinapp.com. It's also this page is also shown in the startup page of Plantin-App, so you can get there that way as well. But there's this documentation and link and getting started, and added a couple of topics that might be of use. There's lots of good stuff in here, how to install for our enterprise level clients. This one is an important one, IP whitelist, because Plantin-App downloads content from websites from the Plantin-App domain, and those need to be whitelisted. If you block those, your site will not upgrade, and you'll have issues with various things. So it's very important that those whitelists happen, so they're documented there. But recently created this article of how to configure IIS so that your website doesn't go to sleep, and therefore ensuring reliability. So, for example, we have some jobs that when you have automations that are set up on your site and you set them up to run at 3 a.m. and then IIS, because nobody's using your website, IIS might shut down your website to save resources, and then with that, the since it's not running at 3 a.m., the job doesn't run. So the configuring IIS the way that this describes makes that not happen. The website doesn't go to sleep. It does use additional resources on your server, but it stays running continuously. And so this kind of it does a couple of things. You've got the kind of instant availability when you browse to the site. It doesn't wake up from that dead sleep and take 5 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever your site requires. So it feels faster to your end users, and then it's still running at 3 in the morning when that job is supposed to run. While we're here, I talked in the Low Code Cafe about an enhancement to automation. We've recently fixed on automation. There is a setting in the triggers called on misfire, and whether you want it to run on a misfire or not. So in the scenario where your website was asleep at 3 in the morning and your job didn't run, if you have this on misfire set to true, then when your website wakes up, it will now run the job at that later time. You might not want that, so you could set the on misfire to false if you only want it to run at a time interval that you set. It'll just skip that run and hopefully it'll be available the next time. But anyway, those two things kind of work in conjunction, and setting up this procedure, which takes about 5 minutes, by the way. It's not hard to set up IIS. I know some of you have had issues with websites sleeping in the middle of the night and automation's not running, so hopefully this will help with that. And then not every, I wrote an article on this is all a work in progress, but an article about how to clone a website and trying to make sure that you know all the steps, because there's a couple of nuances in here about changing portal aliases and maybe your web config a little bit, and so just thought it would be helpful if you're going to make a clone of your site to have a step-by-step guide. I realized that since I've written this, I realized I didn't mention anything about the relicensing kind of thing, which becomes important. So what happens with Plant App and licensing? When you change a domain name, the licensing, there is no license for that domain. So if you had a test site, if you had a ABC site and you created clone ABC with a different DNS, then it would not come in as licensed, and you'd have to activate it. So I got to add an activation step into this, but this is better than having no documentation. So, and yeah, so hopefully that'll help. And then coming next for documentation, Wednesday, the Low Code Cafe was all about our Google Cloud API action, and I don't believe that's documented, so I'm going to improve the documentation with an article on that one as well. If anybody gets excited about documentation and looking at something and finding either writing a new article or updating an old one, I'd be happy to work with you to show you how you could make contributions to this. But in the meantime, just know that we're working and improving it. Were any of you at the Low Code Cafe on Wednesday for the Google Bearer token? Look at the list. I ended up doing this and Low Code Campfire, and so if nobody stops me with something else to do, I'm going to walk through that again and actually kind of make it more available as a contribution, so that you can see how to do it within Campfire, so that anybody that needs to get into these Google services will have it available to you in the future. Let's see. In campfire.plantainapp.com, and if any of you don't have access to it, if you promise not to hurt things, I'll give you an ID to be able to access it. We have these are the things that I did in Google Cloud, in the Campfire, and so, excuse me, in the cafe 2 days ago, and you could play that back and see how it went together. But we ended up with these 4 or 5. Go ahead and demonstrate where we ended, and maybe we'll make something out of this. What we ended up doing was creating a file, listing files, creating files, deleting files out of Google Drive. And so I have let's see if everything still works. So there's a workflow here, get Google Drive files. If I run it, it asks me what folder ID I care about, and the folder ID is this folder. This is a folder I've put out on Google Drive that I've shared with everyone, and you can see it begins with 1DU, and so I've got this 1DU ID here, and so when we run it, it gets a list of all the files that are in that folder, and I've told it to be very verbose. So if we were to look at this JSON in any way that we like to look at JSON, we can see that for each file, we can see who the parent of a file is, who the owners of it are, what the permissions are for that particular file, the ID of the file. This is pretty key if you want to do anything with the file. I'm going to copy that for more fun and games here in a minute. The name of the file, see, it's called myfile.txt, and which we can see that right here. So the get Google Drive files workflow does that. There is a Google Drive delete file that we created, and if we run that, and this asks for a file ID, if we use that file ID that I copied just a minute ago and run it, it deletes the file for us. And if we go back and look for it here, now we can see it's gone. So we're interacting with Google Drive. I have another workflow that creates a file, just a text file, and so it asks for the folder ID, and it's all hard coded here, or rather default coded, and I'm going to call it during Campfire example, and this is test content by data. And we run it, and it's going to create a file for us, and response that comes back is the ID of the file, for example. We go back and look in Google Drive, and we can see that it's there. If we click in on it, we can see that it's got the content that we gave it. The last one is the Google Drive get file. And if we give it a file ID, which I just copied here a minute ago, it'll go off and get the content out of the file. So this is just kind of basic operations, right? We can see what files are there. We can create them, delete them, read them down just out of Google Drive. Anyone see any spots where they might plan to use either Google Drive or the other services that are through Google with this Google Get Bearer token?
That's a really cool implementation, Dale. I like that. PlanetApp has a client that uses this for. It's a little bit more complex of a setup because it requires other stuff, but it uses it for managing the Google user directory, which is a pretty cool implementation as well.
So the Google Bearer was given high security rights and the ability to create Google users, if I have this right. So the when they're onboarding or offboarding employees, they can automatically do all the Google things using the
right. Yeah.
functionality.
So when they're creating they create the user in their PlanetApp account, and then it automatically creates an email address for the user, and it onboards the user completely from PlanetApp. They're able to onboard their user completely in Google and immediately have an email address for them so they and they can immediately give them a place to go check their email and everything.
And I think this points out, one of the strengths of PlanetApp being able to integrate with these other services, and we see this pattern quite a bit where, obviously Google has the ability, has nice UI to be able to create accounts and do that, but it's still a manual process. Putting PlanetApp on top of it so that your company's pattern of creating whatever Google services they need with basically one click or fill in a form and saving a lot of time in that. We have another client recently that is connected to, I think it was SAP, to create quotes and be able to read content out of that system. So just being able to ride on top of these other systems and simplify how they're used is certainly one valid way to use PlanetApp. So very quickly, I'm not going to go into all these workflows, but we'll start with this one that gets the Google Drive file. So it asks for a folder ID, and this is where the default was coming from for us. It's a one-step workflow that is calling the Google API Drive files, passing in the folder ID, and saying, hey, I want everything in the world returned to me. And as a, oh my goodness, this is not, it's a get that's going on there. And the output of that is a token called drive files, and we are just outputting drive files here on the as an output. So when we run this, we get all that content out of that, and now we have the file that we have in there is during Campfire example.
Dale, real quick, before you move on too far from that, I wanted to point out that you said, oh my goodness, I didn't set the type of request, the request type remember that's now set as it's a default now because because so many people were forgetting to do that, so it defaults to Git now. So that's why you weren't having an issue with it.
Uh, Absolutely good point. And I didn't know whether I'd forgotten to do it, or sometimes we have some issues with whether things save correctly, but it's probably what you said. I probably didn't pick it in the first place. The the thing that makes the ability, I mean, we're calling Google here, and the thing that makes it all possible to run, you have to have authorization with Google. And so we have, in the episode, we created this token called Google Bearer Token, and that returns all the security information necessary to talk to Google. It's a, a workflow token, so we have this Google workflow token that we can run. And so anytime you use Google Bearer token, you get back this big long string of Google authentication. And that's happening in this get Google Bearer. Um, the and this is the action that we've provided and that needs documentation. There's this action called get Google authorization bearer token. So we just pass it our credentials, and again, watch the episode to see how to get the credentials and how to put them in here. But um, using the credentials, what scope do we want to get authorization for, which is Google Drive, and it gives us a Google Bearer token as a result. So our action makes it very easy to get this functionality, get the security token from Google, and then it's just a question of how you use it after that. So that's what we did on Wednesday. Any questions before I do some? I'm going to do some stuff with this. So, in the absence of questions, I'm going to keep moving on this area.
A comment on the using the Google APIs that I've run into using
Yes.
them is that they have some throttling in place, and uh, Plant and App can run their APIs quicker than that throttling, and sometimes you have to put some delays in depending on which API you're using. I'm running it against a calendar API,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to, where I've built out a workflow to do it, I have to add a 1 second delay to keep from running into throttling.
So yeah, that's a really good point that people should, if you're doing something that's got a lot of volume, make sure you understand the throttling limits and how to overcome that. And we've mentioned it before, but doing the fact that this Google Bearer token um, is set up for caching ends up reducing the number of calls to Google as well. That's not set up for caching. So by setting, but it should have been, I probably was showing something off the other day. Anyway, by doing caching like this for 5 minutes, it runs this and gets this token, and then any other reference to it for the next 300 seconds gives the same token. And so this would, with caching set to 0, every call to do anything in Google would also do a call to get the bearer token. And so that would double the number of calls that you're doing. By caching it, you get one token that gets used over and over again for 5 minutes. I think the limit actually is an hour, so you could probably extend this caching much longer. But that's one way to limit the number of Google calls.
So with the add-on, the add-on is managing the refresh. Currently, since I did this before the add-on, I manually had to monitor that token expiration and refresh at certain intervals and things like that. But is the add-on doing that automatically?
The add-on is not doing it. The add-on is giving us the token, but what's doing it is the caching by implementing it as a workflow token. So any place we're using it, we're using this. Any call to Google Bearer token is going to if there is a cache entry, so if you've done it before, it's going to return the answer from before. That's just a general feature of tokens. So you call it a token the exact same way, and it's within the cache period, you're going to get the previous answer. The first time, there is no previous answer, and so it's running the workflow called get Google error. And that actually does the call one time to Google. So it's not managing it, but rather tokens caching is managing it.
This
And when the cache expires, it knows to then it actually makes the call out to Google to refresh it.
Correct. So as a matter of practice, if you keep your cache number here, 300 seconds, underneath the cap for Google. So if Google gives an hour and we do half an hour or 50 minutes, that same token is going to get used over and over again. But when it expires, um, it'll go get another one. It'll go rerun the workflow. Where you'd get into problems if you tried to cache it for longer than Google authorizes it. So if they authorize an hour and you do 2 hours, then this whole scenario isn't going to work very well for you at all. After the first hour, you'd be trying to reuse a token that's expired and it would just not go anywhere and appear broken. So you just have to make sure your cache time is less than your token lifetime.
this pattern of managing bearer tokens is I would recommend just always doing bearer tokens like this. It's a really great way of managing them because if you try to put the process of getting a bearer token into the same process of where you actually use the bearer token, you have to keep on recreating that same set of actions over and over again. And here you have it just available to you. You use that token anywhere, and it just works. And all you have to do is put that token into the server request where the bearer token has to go. You just put that token in there, and it's just there. So it's a really great pattern to managing these. Yeah, just like that.
The we've touched on it before, but the caching in tokens is according to the exact way that it gets called. So when we do, I mean, this token is very simple. The assumption it's we have Google bearer token and no, we're not passing any parameters. Um, so this is great for a scenario where the same authentication can be used throughout the site. Any user, anybody who needs to do Google Drive work would use the same token and it would work just fine. Under different services or different scenarios, maybe you'd want to pass in a user ID to your authorization so that maybe the bearer token that you get back is going to be authorized for a particular user or a particular scope based on their user ID. This could give you a scenario where if you're an administrator, you're going to get an administrator bearer token, and if you're a common user, you're going to get a lower level security, a different token. So it, if you Okay, so point to the story is if you're calling a cached token in different ways with different parameters like admin versus user or passing in a user ID or something, those get cached separately. So the caching keeps straight this different security scenario. Does that make any sense, or did I hash it?
I think it made sense.
Yeah, it made sense to me. I mean, in my case, I over-designed, where I could have just used caching and
Mm-hmm.
probably, got the same thing. The only piece that looks confusing and in doing this is your bearer token here says that it's executing a workflow. So in that workflow, where's that? Is the it's running the workflow, and the workflow is somewhere saving off that's cached, or is the cache looking at that and saying don't execute the workflow, as opposed to the text that's coming back as the actual text data of the token.
So I think the answer, I think if I have your question correct, the answer is when you're consuming this in a actual call to Google, you're just using this syntax. And so it's calling tokens. Tokens is the first thing then that does work. And the logic of tokens always is, do I have a cached answer for this? No, I'm going to run the workflow.
Okay.
But now I have a cached answer for this, and so the is that the question you were asking?
Yeah, no, I just never understood that the cache on a workflow token would look at the would cache the response from the workflow, so the
Yes.
and not execute it. So I never understood that before now.
Yep. And I suppose while we're there, we could talk about APIs have um, to get into the editor here. APIs have cache response choice also, and this is the same thing. So if you design an API call that whether you use it or your clients use it, and if you turn on caching, it's that same mechanism. If it's um, if it's got 60-second cache, then this is going to give you the same answer. I mean, you'll get one time it'll run all the actions, and the second time, if it's within that 60 seconds, you're just going to get the last answer, regardless. It's just so it's much faster, but it's skipping doing all the work. Um, so caching is something that you have in. I mean, it's the same thing. You just have to think about whether or not you want to use it that way. If you say 0, it's going to do the work every time. If you say an hour, it's going to give you the same answer for an hour, regardless of what else has changed behind the scenes.
And my pattern till now for a workflow token or a API was to take that and put that into a standard token and cache that token, but I never realized I could have just done it in a single step. So,
Yep. And actually, that's a valid pattern though, because um, if you if you cache a standard token but not cache the thing that it's based on, then it gives you the opportunity to do it both ways. You can, if you need to call the the um, the underlying one, if you need to force call it, you can um, you can use the actual workflow or the versus the cached one. So you get to pick. Another way to fake that out is to pass a random string as part of the calling sequence, and that will invalidate the cache and force it to run. All right, lots of cache talk. We've made our hour, so I'm going to call it there. We're glad that you joined us for this hour. We'll do it again in a week, Low Code Campfire next Wednesday, and who knows, maybe I'll actually have the contribution I was talking about done and the documentation done, and that'll be a progress I can bring back. But thanks for spending your hour with us, and we will see you in a week. Hang around for Afterglow if you like.